Hey, what's going on, Jets fans? This is Jets Talk Now. I'm Paul Fiore. Thanks for joining me today. I hope everybody had a good day. It is Wednesday evening. Wanted to hop on after my day of work and talk a bit about the Jets and some of the news that was out today. I'm certainly in a better mood than I was yesterday when we were talking about Robert Saleh and his new job. That was not meant to be the rant itself was more about the media and how people have reframed his time in New York and not necessarily about Saleh himself. I was a Saleh fan, so I wish him the best, but we move forward. Anyway, are you as convinced as I am that ESPN just absolutely loves to hate on the Jets? Like, more than any team in any professional sport, it is clear that they love to take shots at them, to make fun of them, to say outrageous takes, some of which I think are rage bait. But not only that, just things that are meant to be generally grounded takes feel like they are done in a way that will only just continue to make this franchise the laughing stock that it's been. And so as a fan, I sit here and I wonder, it must be good for, ratings. It has to be, because why else would you do it? There's tons of Jet fans. We get wound up on this stuff, and we're obviously a frustrated fan base. And so I wanted to talk about a few of those things. So, this morning, there were a couple of things that I noticed. There was an article that came out about who the potential quarterbacks could be for the Jets this year that are veterans. And then Mel Kiper did his mock, and I actually have his clip. We'll play that and then talk about it. But, now we're in the off season, it's all going to be about mock drafts, and it's going to be about, for all teams. And, we'll talk again, at the end here, I saw some news on Jets coaching staff, and we'll talk about that at the end. But the conversation around the Jets right now is, what are they going to do with the draft? And, in a normal year, the second pick in the draft would really create a lot of interest, intrigue, conversation around who they're going to draft, because this is a team that does not have a quarterback. So you would expect in any other year, I mean, maybe the Kenny Pickett year is a good example of it being similar. There's usually more than one quarterback that would be in the conversation for a first-round grade. And in many instances, there's also discussion around who should be the number one pick, which would then leave the second team picking second to potentially get a quarterback as well. Well, the Jets, of course, because they're the Jets, in a year where they tank and win 3 games, there's only one quarterback in this draft. And unless something just completely unexpected happens with the Raiders, Fernando Mendoza is going to be a Raider. And the Jets will have to find their quarterback elsewhere. So the number 2 pick in the draft is really not that it's not exciting. You're going to hopefully you get a great player, but it's just, it doesn't have the same oomph for the general public. And if you look on X and you look at social media in general and you watch the news, when they talk about the Jets, it's always a conversation around who the quarterback's going to be for 26. Rightfully so. So, because the number 2 pick is going to be one of, most likely, unless they trade out, which, they could do that. And I am certainly not a draft expert when it comes to some of this stuff. Like I had Dom on, and he's obviously really plugged in, and guys that I follow often going to the Senior Bowl, they're going to have a much better perspective on this draft class and where the talent lies. I just kind of follow a lot of their stuff, and then I'll watch tape on these guys and then come up with my own views, but I'm not an expert there. Quarterbacks, I think I have a much better grasp of. I know what I'm looking at and know what I'm looking for. I've been doing that for a very long time over the years in general, and so I'm very opinionated on the quarterback position, not so much anywhere else. But at number 2, Jets are going to draft one of, most likely, Bane, Bailey, or Reese, right? And it's just a matter of which is the guy that has the superstar ceiling that they should go and grab, And each one of these guys, they have an argument to be made that could be the number 2 pick. I don't see them drafting a wide receiver at 2. I would be shocked if Tate or Tyson gets drafted at 2. So, Bane, obviously, the dude is, kind of a force to be reckoned with. The people worried about his arm length. I don't know. I have to watch more of him, but I watched him obviously in the championship game, and he was a game wrecker. I mean, the guy was all over the field, and Jets could certainly use someone like that. Bailey, I saw some Texas Tech football this year. Obviously, edge rusher who, a lot of people think he's going to be one of those double-digit sack guys consistently in his career. The Jets' edge position is hurting badly. WMD is more of a situational pass rusher. Tremaine is not what I would call a high-end pass rusher. A lot of the comps on Bailey are that he's much more of a complete pass rusher than what Will McDonald is. He'll play a lot more consistently on the field. The Jets have problems at edge, so they certainly could use that. And then you have, Reese, who's kind of this hybrid, off the ball linebacker who people have compared ceiling wise to Micah Parsons. And man, I mean, what defense couldn't use someone like that? So, I'm good, right? Like the number 2 pick, I'm going to see mocks. I'm going to do mocks. Everyone's going to make those 3 guys pretty much the consistent pick, unless they trade down and maybe they go, safety, Caleb Downs, people love, but I don't think anybody's going to put him at 2. So that's the conversation there. This morning, I read an article on ESPN, this is why I think ESPN hates the Jets, where they gave 3 options for potential 2026 quarterbacks behind center for the Jets. And I think us as fans will, if you haven't read the article already, let me go through it with you real quick. Here are your 3 names, your 3 potential veteran quarterbacks. Kyler Murray. I mean, there is an argument about Kyler Murray's talent that is undeniable in his ability, and his skill is as good as anything the Jets have put on the field in years. If this was purely just an argument about his ability and what he can do on the field, you could argue that this would be a great move. But it's a lot more than that with Kyler Murray, and we know this, and I've said it over and over again. I question whether he loves football. I question when a guy needs in his contract a stipulation that says he's going to study film, if he is someone that can ever play consistently at the level necessary to beat high-end quarterbacks in this league. I question his leadership. His injury history is terrible. He's gone through 2 head coaches already in his very short career, one of whom was a QB guru who wanted him and had a falling out with him. The fact that people make jokes about whether he is playing Call of Duty or studying game film is really questionable for me about why you would consider him in your locker room to be the leader of your football team. So I'm all I am very negative towards the Kyler Murray deal, and people will sell me on basically they're giving him away. And I look at that and I go, well, when you're giving away a guy that's supposedly that talented, that should be the biggest red flag of all. And there's a new head coach coming, and ownership wants to get rid of Kyler Murray. His contract's not crazy if he was really good. If he was someone you felt really great about, his contract relative to other high-end quarterback contracts is not crazy. So I'm just not there. The second name, I would take Kyler Murray over this one. Tua. Do we not know that the New York Jets play in an open air, cold weather climate? And do we not know Tua's history in playing in cold weather? And do we not know that Tua has had, I don't know how many concussions and injuries, and has no arm strength, and just it goes on and on and on. I mean, he's been made fun of for years by a Jet fan base. Imagine him actually being the Jets quarterback. I can't. I think there might be an absolute revolt against the Jets organization if Tua is the quarterback for 2026. Even if you're pro tank, I don't know if you can watch that guy play under center. And the third name, I mean, I'm not joking. It's Geno Smith, ex-Jet Geno Smith, who was a complete bust in New York, who got his jaw broken in the locker room by a teammate, flamed out here, went on and had this crazy career revival in Seattle, signs as a free agent with the Raiders, and has an awful season last year, helps them acquire the number 1 pick, is now going to want to come back to two things. Why the hell would he want to play in New York after everything that he went through here? Why the hell would the Jets want him? He's 35 years old. He's completely washed. It would be crazy for Geno to come back. Now, I know the media would love it because it's a bunch of crazy stories that they can write, and they'll have a field day with it. And the minute he comes out there and he starts throwing pick after pick after pick, it's a disaster. So, like, would it be a fun story in the beginning, Geno coming back to New York? Yeah, they're going to write all kinds of stuff, and he's going to training camp, and it's Geno, and he's coming home, and then he's going to be terrible. So that was a real article today. And if the Jets acquire 2 of those 3, Geno or Tua, maybe they deserve ESPN to make fun of them. Maybe they do at that point, because it's just, I don't see how you can legitimately do that and consider yourself a serious football team. I just don't know how you can. Now, listen, I acknowledge that there's not a lot of great options on the veteran quarterback market, but that doesn't mean you go and do that. I mean, please, like, it's kind of crazy. So then Mel Kiper put out his mock draft 1.0 today, and here's a clip I will share with you on his
Saban's there with them, advising them. So he had heard first round. You think about Ty Simpson. Like I said, he could have been top 5. He would have continued through. Offensive line let him down. Ryan Williams didn't have the year expected. He had no running game. Okay. Ty Simpson obviously goes to a team that you say, can they screw it up? Can they affect? Hey, let him sit for a little bit. He's only has 15 starts. But again, put a little weight on that frame. This kid's so competitive. He won't let a play die. He fights to the bitter end a little too much. He'll figure that out. Ty Simpson, like I said, at this point, at 16, we were talking top 5 back in October. I think would make sense for the New York Jets or the Steelers or the Rams late first round.
Or the Colts. Did we stay where we're great? Awesome.
I'll tell you why I like it.
Give it around.
I like it because you could take a swing this year, the second first-round pick you have, and you have so many picks that, hey, if he's not the guy, you could draft another one next year, and you're not bound to Ty Simpson. You took him 16th overall. I don't think it's a bad idea. Take one this year, and if he's not great, take another one next year. You might as well keep swinging the bat.
Hey, look, why not? I mean, we have a different quarterback every year. We have a different coach every year. Well, I mean, why not?
I mean, let me take this off my screen. Are we for real? Like, okay. Forget about whether you like Ty Simpson or not for a minute, because I am going to talk about Ty Simpson as a football player. Just the theory that the Jets have a bunch of draft capital, so screw it. Keep drafting a quarterback until you get it right. Who cares? That's Peter Schrager, who I respect a lot in his football knowledge. I just think that's an insane thought process for a first-round draft pick. Like, you could say every year a team should take a swing at a quarterback. Philly does this. But it's usually someone later in the draft that you potentially could hit on, and maybe you develop that, you don't burn premium draft capital for. New Orleans took this swing this year with Tyler Shuck in the second round. So, not a fourth round pick, a second round pick, but, that's not crazy. If these guys came on today and said, hey, the Jets, after pick 16, they still have 33 and 44. They could take a swing at maybe if Chambliss is there or Ty Simpson is there. I think that's a reasonable take. But the take of, and I actually think it's reasonable to say, hey, I think Ty Simpson's worthy of a 16th pick. Let's argue that. But if you listen to what Mel Kiper actually said, everything he said is why he should not be a 16th pick in the draft. He had 15 college starts. The second half of this season, he was terrible. It's not just not just college football playoffs. He was bad for multiple games in the second half of the season. Now, people are going to blame his offensive line in the running game. The first half of the year, his offensive line and running game was the same thing, and he was much better. He was, his accuracy fell off. He had happy feet in the pocket. And why do I know? I watched a lot of him because, I said this earlier, I'm not a draft expert, but I watch a lot of college football, and I really pay attention to the quarterbacks and obviously wide receivers, but skill players. This year, I spent the entire college football season watching Mendoza, Moore, and Simpson, as well as Arch, but I watched Arch more because I'm a Longhorn fan. Not because I expected him to come out. I didn't expect him to come out. I do think he's going to have an unbelievable 2026, be the number one pick in the 2027 draft. Absolutely every day. I really believe that. Okay. So, but when I watched Dante Moore, I had red flags. Okay. The red flags for me with Dante Moore were the lack of starts. Some of the things I saw him do in his tendencies made me a little nervous, although I liked his arm and he could layer passes and things like that. I would not have made him my number 2 pick. I was relieved when he decided to not declare. Ty Simpson is a poor man's version of Dante Moore. He's probably a little bit more athletic, actually, but less starts. He's actually older because he sat at Alabama for a while. I don't think he has the same arm talent. So I don't think his ceiling is high enough. And so no different than me not wanting to draft Dante Moore too. I don't want to draft Ty Simpson 16. Now, if you told me, okay, you can get him at 33 or 44, maybe I'm willing to hear you on that. But, from where I sit, I actually have a very different plan in mind. I think the Jets need to draft impact players. They have 2, 16, 33, 44. I think the first 4 picks of this draft, in no particular order, need to be a wide receiver, safety help, linebacker, edge, linebacker, edge. There's your 4. Or if you want, draft a center, because I think there's a couple of starting centers that are available that you might be able to get with the 44th pick. So to me right now, what I would be doing is I'm going to get the pick of the litter in number 2. Let's just go with, let's say we pick Reese at 2. At 16, I'm getting the best wide receiver available at 16. That I'm kind of predetermined to do that at 16, unless Styles falls to 16, and I don't think he will. At 33, I have done multiple mocks where I can get Halsey at 33 as a safety. And then 44, I would probably go with a center, one of the 2 or 3 top centers that will be in this draft. That's what I would do. And then I'm going for a quarterback who's a development prospect later on in the 4th round, 5th round, an Aller, a Klubnik, a Nussmeier if he's there. I think Nussmeier might go a little earlier, but I'm not wasting draft capital. I'm taking a dart throw. Why? Because I'm setting myself up for 2027 and I'm building my roster. I think the team needs to be built. I think we need really good football players. We need to fix things. And so when I see these types of things, it's not that the projection of Ty Simpson is 16. It's the mocking of, just keep taking players. You got all kinds of draft capital. Oh, and then you see Mike Greenberg, who, I know he's a Jet fan, but my gosh, talk about a guy that's as negative as they get. Oh, yeah, we're just new quarterback every year. Oh yeah, new coach every year. Like the jokes write themselves, and ESPN feeds into it. Whether it's Mel Kiper, whether it's Mike Greenberg, whether it's Damian Woody, whether it's Stephen A. Smith, Cam Newton, they all do it. There's like this pure. Dan Orlovsky's done it. They love to do it. The only person that pulled back a little bit this year was Ryan Clark because his kid's on the team. So it's like, I know it's good for business, but and maybe until the Jets just act like a normal organization, this is what we're going to deal with as fans. But it's ridiculous. If the Jets draft Ty Simpson at 16, it's one of 2 things. Either they're desperate to provide the fan base with what they believe will be perceived hope that they have their franchise quarterback. Because when you draft a quarterback at 16, I don't care what anybody says. You're believing that you're getting your franchise quarterback. You're not throwing away a pick at 16. So they're going to sell Ty Simpson as the future. Okay? Or they truly believe that he can be a franchise quarterback. And if that is the position of Darren Muji is, and I'm saying Muji more than Glenn because I trust Muji more than Glenn based on how the year went. If Darren Muji is sitting in a room and says, look, my evaluation with the team and the scouts are that Ty Simpson's ceiling is one of being able to beat the Drake Mays and the Josh Allens of the AFC East. We're going to develop this guy at 16. He's going to sit the entire season, and we're going to make him our starter in 27. Well, that's the bet he just made with his job, and I can't get mad at that. I just don't know if this regime is going to operate in that manner, or are they going to operate in a way that is desperation to try to save their asses. And so I would feel good of one of 2 ways. They pass on a QB, because I think they should, until later in the draft and set themselves up for 2027. And honestly, the vet quarterback market, if Kirk Cousins doesn't stick in, Atlanta, great, go get Kirk. If he's not available, go get Marcus Mariota. If he's not available, go get Jimmy G. If he's not available, go get Mitch Trubisky. If he's not available, try and make a trade for Mac Jones if that's what you want to do, as long as it's not giving up a first or a second round pick. If you're giving up a 4th round pick for him, fine. I don't believe Malik Willis is going to be a Jet. I think he's going to be a Dolphin. But if Malik Willis is willing to take a reasonable contract, fine. I'm not paying him $25 million a year. I have a feeling he's going to get that. And so why am I saying all this? Because if you look at the Jets' schedule for 2026, and this is not being negative, and this is not me saying I want them to tank, their schedule does no favors to them. Their roster needs a ton of work, and they will not, no matter what quarterback they acquire, on the off chance they get Malik Willis and he becomes a superstar, notwithstanding, they will be in most games playing with the inferior starting quarterback. And in the league, like the NFL, where the quarterback position is the most important one on the field, if you are playing at a deficit at that most important position, the odds are is you're going to be a very bad football team. So I don't care that much about mortgaging a bunch of capital for 26 and screwing up 2027 when there's going to be Julian Sayin, Arch Manning, Dante Moore, and the list goes on, right? A lot of guys that people feel really strongly about. The Jets will have a swing at one of those guys. That's the way I look at it. Now, last two things before we go. Connor Hughes and Zach were on today talking about the Jets defensive coordinator. There was some interesting nuggets in their conversation that I thought would be interesting to talk about. They lean heavily on the belief that Wink Martindale is going to be the DC, which I think is a bad move by Glenn. But they're not just speaking it because my belief is they're not just saying these things because they're just guessing. Connor came out and said, we have sources. We talk to people within the organization. Wink is in the lead. This is not just coming from Wink. He also said that Aaron Glenn and Wink have been talking since some point early to mid-December. So we're talking about a month and a half, 2 months of those two having conversations about this job. Hiring Wink Martindale is literally a carbon copy redo of Steve Wilks. Older, out of the league, nobody else interviewing him, kind of a old school mentality, dated scheme. I mean, if that's what Glenn, who is a defensive guy, does for a defensive coordinator, I think very seriously he's in a lot of trouble. And, they talked about Jim Leonard. I just don't believe Jim Leonard wants the job. If they prove me wrong, I will be the first to say it. My preference is Jim Leonard, Durante Jones, or Banda. That would be my three. But, what do I know? I'm just a fan. So if it's Wink, we'll see. But I think that's just bad. They also said lots of agents told them, or not maybe lots of agents told them that people were turning down their requests for interviewing. And if you're a big AG guy, you're going to think that I'm taking a shot here, and I'm not. This is the problem with a guy who won 3 games his first season and was completely over his skis for the vast majority of the year. People are perceiving the job as being on the hot seat. So taking a DC job for a team that won 3 games last year, has major talent issues, and has a perceived head coach on the hot seat is not attractive for someone who has options. So Glenn he should do everything he can to convince guys like Leonard to take the job, because it will give him he'll reclaim some credibility amongst those in the league when it comes to his ability to build a coaching staff, and maybe the fan base too. Lastly, which is also concerning to me, as they talked about the offensive staff. They referenced the tight ends coach, the offensive line coach, and Jefferson, the wide receivers coach, all coming back. I understand the offensive line coach coming back. I understand the tight ends coach coming back. I do not understand the wide receivers coach coming back. It is what it is. They then pivoted to the conversation around Charles London, our QB coach. And while they said very clearly they don't know, they then also said it would be kind of a surprise this far into the offseason beginning, where he is still employed, that he won't be back. So their expectation is that he will be back. I don't know where you sit on this, but for me, I don't want to hear people tell me a quarterback's coach is not that important, that really at the end of the day, it comes down to the offensive coordinator. Well, if position coaches weren't important, then how do they go from position coaches to assistant coaches to DC, OC, eventually head coaches? They work their way up because they prove themselves in the roles. Charles London's a running back coach who is moonlighting as a quarterback's coach and has not had any success in the role. We had the worst quarterback room in the league last year. Justin Fields regressed behind center. Brady Cook was unplayable behind center. Tyrod Taylor doesn't count. He wasn't learning anything from Charles London. But if your resume is Justin Fields and Brady Cook, and prior to that, Will Levis, Leak Willis, guys who failed, and now the Jets are considering bringing in a rookie quarterback, the idea that he is in the role still is absolutely absurd. And if Glenn does that, I am going to kill him for that all offseason. Because it's just, listen, I'm someone who's run business and had many people report to me. I cannot take incompetence. Charles London's incompetent. He would not be a QB coach for anybody right now in the league. So, the DC hire scares me, if that's who it becomes. The offensive staff not having turnover scares me. This regime needing to show something to the fan base and provide hope to Woody scares me. Be a competent organization and do the right thing. Draft the best players available at 2, 16, 33, 44 that are non-QB players. If Ty Simpson falls to 33 and you want to take a swing, I won't be upset about that. That would make sense. He won't. But you are not equipped to use your 16th pick on a project. Go get one of the defensive studs at 2. Go get wide receiver 2 at 16. There's a bunch of them. You hope Lemon falls to 16. If not, you got Boston sitting there who's he's like 6'4", 200-plus pound, true big-bodied wide receiver. At 33, go grab a safety, get a ball hawk. 44, there's a few ways you can go. For me, I like the idea of going and getting a center and then look later in the draft at a project quarterback. That to me is competence as an organization. It shows no panic. It shows you have a plan. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I'll be on Twitter or X spewing my views and sometimes getting hate back and sometimes getting a lot of support. And we've had some fun with that in the last 48 hours. I don't usually block people. I did have to block like 2 people just because, I don't have a problem with you disagreeing with my takes. When you start cursing me out and saying things that I wouldn't do to you, I don't have the time for it. I'm not a kid. I view that as just a lack of, an intelligent debate. I love intelligent debate. Let's have those things. So anyway, I hope everyone has a great night. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. Please click like and subscribe below. And feel free to put any comments in the chat. Take care, guys. Have a great night.